Aloha, this is Kat, Sweet Cat Magic. Today I'd like to talk about cats and abscesses. I just got a call a couple of days ago about what do I do? My cat has a big, large bump. What do I do? Well, a cat abscess forms usually from a cat bite. So if you've heard growling and fighting a couple of days before you notice a big bump on your cat, that is probably going to be an abscess. And what you need to do is, it does need to be treated. Sometimes very small ones, they can pop and go on their own. But if your feline has suddenly disappeared, hiding, not eating, very withdrawn and avoiding you, and you notice that there's a bump and you feel it and it is warm to hot, then that is most likely an abscess and it will need to be treated. And the easiest way to treat it is to start applying hot compresses. That's a compress. Get a wash rag and soak it in very hot water that you've boiled, that you've let cool a little bit. You want it so that if you can put it on your own skin, you can put it on the cat. Never put anything on a cat that you can't put on yourself. And you're going to try to put that over the bump, the wound, and you're hoping to draw out the pus. Now you can soak it in Epsom salts, and usually the Epsom salt works a little bit later when the wound is actually open. But what you're trying to do is get the skin to draw it up so that the skin will actually rupture and that the pus will be released. And when it does release, it will be quite nasty. But that's what you want, better out than in. And what happens is, if it stays in, the pus can act like an acid. So depending upon the location of the wound, it's very, very important that you get it treated by a vet. If it's along the leg line, where there's tendons and you've got this big swelling, that pus can act like total acid and eat all the tendons. So you do not want to mess around with that. If it's on the back of the neck of a male cat, no matter how many days and whatever you do to put hot compresses on, it will not pop on its own. A male cat's neck is very, very tough. And I've even had a vet say that even with a scalpel, he could barely get through one of my cat's necks to get that. It will need to be drained by the vet, cleaned out and drained, and then a tube will be placed in it to keep it for about a week of just letting it drain. And then you'll have to go back and have stitches removed and pull the drain out. Also, the cat will need antibiotics. If the wound is on the head, then you really want to get there. I've had one cat that had a nasty, nasty wound on his head, and I had to keep cleaning it out a lot and treating it. Wesley wants to come up here. If you have a cat that's very difficult for you to take to the vet, you're going to have to really try to manage to get it into a carrier, because it needs to go and have it drained. Especially if it hasn't popped. If it hasn't popped, if it's just been days and days and getting bigger and bigger, and especially if it's in the neck area, take it to the vet. And the antibiotics will need to be administered probably twice a day. And if your cat is a very difficult cat to administer medication to, what I do is I don't even bother with that. I get the vet to give me the shot that's called Depo. There's a whole medical name to it. But the Depo shot, and it's a 2-week antibiotic shot. I try to do everything as gently and easy for them, easy for me, because you never want to start antibiotics for a cat unless you are guaranteed that you can complete the entire dosage on schedule for the duration of the time. Otherwise, you've created another kind of a problem. If you catch the cat immediately after it's been in a fight and you can see the wound, then you can treat that and try to get as clean as possible with antiseptic, hydrogen peroxide, treat it with triple antibiotic, and try to get that wound open. Try to open it up with your fingers to try to make sure you get as much of that antiseptic in there as possible. If you have heard the cat fight and you don't see anything, and you have knowledge that you really think there was a cat fight and a cat bite, you can give him a homeopathic remedy called Ledum, and that will help for wounds before they develop into an abscess. One of the things you want to be very careful about is your sweet little companion will no longer be your sweet little companion when they're in pain. And so you want to be very careful the way you handle them. You can make your carrier all nice and warm and cozy for them. You could put a little catnip ball that you have created by just putting a 4x4 inch piece of cloth with catnip and a hair tie in there. Put it in the carrier, because catnip is really a relaxing herb, even though they seem to get quite excited about it. The other thing is, you do not want to just reach your hand out and grab a cat with an abscess. They will respond. Even your most loving animal will respond because they're in pain. So take care of yourself and wear gloves, and get them in the carrier with gloves on yourself if you sense that they're going to be fighting you. So those are just some ways of treating an abscess. Take it seriously. It can be life-threatening if you let it go. But most of them are easily resolved. Some are resolved on their own. But to me, the location of it is paramount. And if it's on the head, I'm very cautious because of it going to the brain. If it's on the neck, it's impossible to ever pop. And if it's on the legs, the tendons are at risk. So get your cat treated by the vet. Aloha.